There's a mechanic in an RV repair shop somewhere in America right now, standing in front of a motorhome that cost $80,000, and it is 2 years old. He's peeling back the outer skin of it, the smooth fiberglass side, and underneath, where there should be solid dry wood, there's rot, black, soft, crumbling rot. And he can tell, just by looking at how far it spread, that the water didn't start getting in last month or last year. It started getting in within weeks of that RV rolling off the assembly line. 2 years old, $80,000, already, in his words, close to totaled. He's seen a lot of these lately, so have the dealers. And so now have millions of Americans who bought the dream on wheels and are quietly trying to get rid of it as fast as they can. Because here's what's actually happening, and it's not the story the numbers alone will tell you. Yes, RV sales collapsed. Yes, prices are falling. But that's the surface. Underneath it is something people are only now saying out loud, and it's uglier than a market cooling off. A huge number of the recreational vehicles sold in America over the last few years were, to put it plainly, badly built, rushed, cheap where it counted most. And the people who bought them are discovering that all at once, in repair bays and warranty lines and dealer lots. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly what went wrong, who let it happen, and why the person standing in that repair shop holding a piece of rotted wood is the real story of this whole collapse. Because when everybody is lining up to hand you money, quality is the first thing you can afford to stop caring about. Let's clear up the easy version first, because it's the one that lets everyone off the hook. The easy version is that this is just a market correction. During the pandemic, people were stuck at home. They had money, they couldn't fly anywhere, so they bought RVs in record numbers. Sales went from around 400,000 a year to 600,000 almost overnight. And now the story goes, that wave has simply passed. Demand went back to normal, sales dropped, prices fell, nothing sinister, just a bubble deflating. And part of that is true. The demand really did spike and really did fade. But that clean, bloodless explanation quietly skips the part that actually matters to the people living it, which is what happened to the 600,000 rigs a year that got built during the frenzy and what they were made of. Because a bubble in demand is one thing. What got manufactured to feed that bubble is another thing entirely, and that's the part nobody in the industry wants to talk about. Here's why that matters. Because a market correction is nobody's fault. What actually happened was a choice. So let's talk about what the people who actually work on these things are saying, because they are not mincing words, and they are not the buyers. On a nationwide dealer call, RV dealers, the people whose entire job is to sell these vehicles, described the quality of what they were being sent as, and this is their word, pathetic. One longtime dealer said it was some of the worst stuff he'd seen in 30 years. Horrendous, he said, inside and out. And here's the part that should stop you, because it reveals the trap they were in. He said they had no recourse but to put it on the lot and try to sell it anyway. You take what you can get, he said, and you move on. Read that again. The dealers knew. The people selling you the RV could see it was junk and sold it to you regardless, because the manufacturers were shipping nothing better and the customers were lined up around the block. Another dealer put it even more simply. The manufacturers, he said, are building them as fast as they can, and there just isn't any quality control. Gone from bad to worse. That's not a disgruntled customer. That's the sales floor telling you the product is broken before you've even bought it. If you've owned an RV and had it spend more time at the repair shop than on the road, drop it in the comments. I read every one, and I promise you're going to find you had a lot of company. Now let's get specific about what breaks, because the pattern is so consistent, it has names. The first one is delamination. That's when the smooth outer fiberglass wall starts separating from what's behind it, and you see it as a wavy, bubbled, rippling look in the side of the RV, like the whole wall is warping. It's ugly, but the ugliness isn't the problem. The problem is what it means, which is water. Underneath that fiberglass, in a huge number of these rigs, is a thin layer of cheap wood called luan, basically glorified plywood. And when water gets past the outer seal, that wood soaks it up, swells, and rots. That's the rot our mechanic was holding. And here's the damning detail he pointed out. When he pulls the outer skin off a 2-year-old rig and finds the wood already that far gone, it tells him the leaking started almost immediately at the factory from seals that were never done right in the first place. So it wasn't wear and tear. It wasn't the owner's fault. It was built to fail, and the failure was just waiting for enough time to become visible. Then there's the water intrusion itself, which shows up as soft spots in the floor you can feel go spongy under your feet, as stains blooming on the ceiling, as leaks around every window and every slide out. There's the cabinetry made of pressboard that loosens and falls apart under the simple stress of traveling. Because remember, this isn't a house. It's a house being shaken like an earthquake at 70 miles an hour for hours at a time. There are the electrical systems that fail, the sensors that give false readings, the appliances that arrive already broken from the factory, and in the worst cases, the safety equipment itself. There's a documented case of a brand new travel trailer where a safety chain and the emergency brake cable both broke almost immediately. That's not an inconvenience. That's the part that keeps the trailer attached to the vehicle pulling it. And here's the structural horror underneath all of it, the thing that should genuinely frighten anyone who's ever driven next to one of these on the highway. That same mechanic, when he got down past the wood to the aluminum frame, the skeleton that holds the entire thing together while it barrels down the interstate, found the welds barely tacked on, not fully welded, just spot-touched, enough to hold on the lot, going down the road at 60+ miles an hour with a family inside. That's the bones of the thing. And it was done fast and done cheap because someone on a production line was being pushed to get the unit out the door. Now, was it always like this? And this is the part that turns a complaint into an indictment, because no, it wasn't. And the people who'd know are the ones saying so loudest. Listen to the longtime owners, the ones who've had 4, 5, 8 rigs across decades. One couple described starting out in a travel trailer back in 2003, keeping it 10 years, and never having a single thing go wrong with it, because in their words, it was built so well. They moved up to another well-built rig years later, no issues. And then they described going to the RV shows every single year after that, walking through the newest models and watching, show after show, a steady decline in workmanship to the point where they simply stopped wanting to buy. That's not nostalgia. That's a controlled experiment run over 20 years by people with nothing to sell you. They watched the same product from the same industry get visibly worse in real time, year over year, on the showroom floor. Another put the sad irony perfectly, describing looking at a new coach where the screws in the stairwell were all driven in sideways. Functional, maybe. But as they said, if a builder can't get the obvious, visible things right, the things you can see standing right there in the showroom, then what does that tell you about everything hidden inside the walls where you can't look? The decline isn't a feeling. It's a thing owners watched happen with their own eyes, one model year at a time. And you have to hold on to a piece of context here that makes all of this worse, because an RV isn't a house sitting still. It's a house being driven. One veteran owner called it exactly right, a rolling earthquake going down the road. Everything in it, every seam, every weld, every screw, every seal, is being shaken continuously for hours at highway speed in a way a real house never is, which means the margin for cheap work is even thinner than it would be for a building. A sloppy seal on a stationary house might hold for years. The same sloppy seal on a machine vibrating down the interstate at 70 fails fast. So cutting corners on an RV isn't just cynical, it's uniquely destructive, because the thing you built badly is then subjected to the harshest possible test, constantly, by design. The manufacturers know this better than anyone. They know exactly what a rig endures, and they cut the corners anyway. If this is making you look at every RV on the road a little differently, a like helps this reach people who are about to spend their savings on one. Takes 1 second, and it might genuinely save someone $80,000. Now let's talk about why this happened, because it's not a mystery and it's not incompetence exactly. It's incentives. Go back to that frenzy. Demand didn't just rise, it exploded, faster than the factories could possibly keep up with. Companies that convert vans suddenly had wait lists years long. And when demand overwhelms supply that completely, something quietly rots in the incentive structure, no pun intended. Think about it from the manufacturer's chair. Every rig you build sells instantly at a premium to a buyer who has no other options and can't afford to be picky. So what exactly is quality control buying you in that moment? Nothing. It only costs you. Every minute a worker spends making sure a seal is right, a weld is complete, a panel is true, is a minute that unit isn't rolling off the line to a customer who would have bought it broken anyway. So the ruthless logic of the boom was to build them as fast as humanly possible and let quality be someone else's problem later. And prices went up 40% at the same time, so buyers were paying more than ever for worse than ever. That's not a company failing. That's a company responding perfectly rationally to a situation where craftsmanship had, briefly, no reward and real cost. The quality didn't collapse by accident. It was competed away on purpose because the market stopped punishing it. And here's the piece that ties it to everything this channel talks about. When quality has no reward, the cost of finding the defects doesn't disappear. It just gets shoved downstream onto the person with the least power to absorb it, the buyer. You became the quality control department. You are the one who discovers the bad seal 2 years later when the wall is already rotting. You are the one who finds the half-done weld, or more likely never finds it. The manufacturer offloaded the entire job of catching their mistakes onto the customer, who pays for the privilege twice, once at purchase and once again at the repair shop, often for a rig that's barely out of warranty, or whose warranty was somehow only a single year on a vehicle costing as much as a house. Let's make this concrete, because this only lands when it's one family. Picture a couple, late 50s, who did everything right. They didn't rush. They saved for years for this. The RV was the whole plan, the reward at the end of a working life, the way they were finally going to see the country together. They researched, they toured the models, they signed for something in the range of $100,000, and they drove off genuinely happy, into the dream exactly as it was sold to them. And within the first year, the ceiling started staining. A slide-out stopped sealing. The floor near the bathroom went soft. They took it in, and it sat at the dealer for weeks, then months, waiting on parts, waiting on a warranty claim the manufacturer dragged its feet on. It spent more of its first 2 years in the repair bay than on the road. And slowly, the dream curdled into a monthly argument with the service department and a loan payment on a thing they couldn't even use, and the creeping realization that the beautiful rig in the driveway was, structurally, a very expensive mistake wearing a nice paint job. So now they're doing what millions are doing, trying to get out from under it, dumping it back onto a market that already knows, taking the loss, because keeping it costs more in money and heartbreak than walking away. For a whole lot of Americans who thought they'd bought their freedom, that slow-motion betrayal in the driveway is just a Tuesday. And when they go to sell, they walk straight into the second half of the trap, because the market already knows what they only just found out. Used RV prices have fallen hard, dropping by as much as a quarter of their value, back to levels not seen in years. So the family that paid $100,000 for a rig that turned out to be junk now discovers it's worth a fraction of what they still owe on it. Think about the vice that puts them in. Keep it and keep pouring money into a rot they can't stop, on a thing they can barely stand to look at. or sell it and eat a loss so large they're still paying off a loan on an RV they no longer own. That's not really a choice. It's just two ways to lose. And that's a big part of why the sell-off looks the way it does, why so many rigs are flooding the used market at once. It isn't a bunch of people casually deciding the lifestyle wasn't for them. It's people scrambling to cut their losses on a purchase that went bad, all at the same moment, having all figured out the same brutal thing at roughly the same time. When everybody realizes it in the same year, the resale market drowns, and the people holding the rigs take the hit for a decision the manufacturers made. Now, here's where you'd expect the safety net, the thing that's supposed to protect a buyer from exactly this: the warranty, the lemon law. Surely, if you spend the price of a house on something and it falls apart, there's recourse. And here's the brutal answer. For RVs, in most places, there basically isn't. The lemon laws that protect you when you buy a defective car largely do not cover recreational vehicles, or cover only the engine and chassis, not the actual living quarters where all of this failure happens. So a family can take a rig back 4, 5, or 6 times for the same unfixed problem and simply be stuck. One owner described exactly that: a unit that just sits broken after multiple failed repair attempts with, in their words, no lemon law to invoke. The warranties are short, sometimes a single year, on a product the manufacturer knows will take longer than that to reveal its worst defects, because the water damage that started at the factory takes time to rot its way into view. The system that's supposed to catch this was quietly built with a hole in it exactly the size of an RV, and the buyer falls right through. And there's one more trap hiding in the paperwork that almost nobody sees until it's too late, and it hits the van conversion crowd hardest, the people who did it the scrappy way. If you took a plain cargo van and built out the inside yourself, or paid someone to, spending tens of thousands on the interior, insurers have quietly gotten strict about what they'll actually cover. Analysts in the field now warn that carriers often require professional inspections or detailed receipts for every single component of the build. And if you don't have that documentation, here's what happens if the vehicle is ever totaled. They cover the value of the empty van shell, just the shell, not the tens of thousands you sank into the interior that made it a home. So a person can lose everything they built, everything they poured their savings into, and get a check for the price of a bare cargo van. Read that against everything else in this video. The manufactured rigs are falling apart on their own, and the ones people built themselves to escape that, out of sheer determination, turn out to be insured as if the interior doesn't exist. Whichever road you took into this dream, the fine print was waiting at the other end. So let's go back to that mechanic holding a fistful of rotted wood out of a 2-year-old $80,000 machine. Now you understand what he's really holding. Not one bad unit, not one unlucky owner. He's holding the physical proof of a decision an entire industry made, quietly, during a few frantic years, to build as fast as possible and let the buyer eat the consequences. The millions of Americans now dumping their RVs aren't fickle. They're not quitting because the adventure got boring. They're fleeing a product that was built to be sold, not to be owned, and they're taking the financial hit to do it because the alternative is pouring money into a rot they can't stop. These aren't people who gave up on a dream. They're people who found out the dream was assembled with staples and half-finished welds and priced like a house. Now, in fairness, I'm not telling you every RV is garbage and every buyer got burned, and you should be suspicious of anyone who says it that cleanly. Plenty of people own newer rigs they're perfectly happy with. Some brands still build genuinely well, and even in the worst years, a careful buyer with a thorough independent inspection could find a solid unit. The honest way to say it is that it became an ODDS game. The lemons were always out there, but the chance of ending up with one climbed sharply, and the people most likely to get burned were exactly the newcomers who rushed in during the boom with no idea what to inspect for, trusting that a $100,000 purchase from a real company came with a basic guarantee of not rotting. That trust was the mistake, and it wasn't an unreasonable one. The point was never that good RVs stopped existing. It's that the floor dropped out, the risk got quietly transferred to the buyer, and the industry faced no penalty for letting it happen. And it will keep happening for a simple reason. As long as a company can build junk and sell it instantly at a premium, quality will keep being the corner that gets cut first, because in a hot market, it's pure cost and no reward. As long as the lemon laws have an RV-sized hole in them, the manufacturer will keep paying no price for the failure, while the buyer pays all of it. As long as the whole risk of a defect sits downstream, on the customer, nobody upstream has any reason to build it right. The rot in that wall wasn't bad luck, and it wasn't isolated. It was the predictable output of a system that stopped rewarding anyone for doing it well. Whether that ever changes isn't a question of whether they can build a good RV. They used to, and some still do. It's a question of whether they're ever made to. And right now, one rotted wall at a time, the answer is that they aren't, and you are. So I'll leave you with the honest question. If a company builds something as expensive as a house, knowing it'll start falling apart before the buyer even finishes paying for it, and faces no real consequence when it does, what exactly is going to make them stop? And if you've lived this in a driveway or a repair bay, tell me what it cost you. Drop it below. I read every one.